Hello, and a warm welcome to the latest edition of our Irish Angle Show in association with William Hill and our Each Way Extra series, challenge series, which they're sponsoring, and we are hopefully going to promote throughout the season. Uh, a slightly different lineup this week. Obviously, I'm back, but Emma Nagel's not, so we've Paddy Flood back again, and we've got Johnny Ward. Paddy, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vinny.
Thanks, Vin.
Now, don't bother, Paddy. Just starting off with this William Hill Each Way Extra Challenge series. What's interesting is they're a fifth of the way through it. They've had 10 races so far in the 50 race series. I know you guys have discussed it a couple of weeks ago. It's a very positive thing for Irish racing, but so far we have in the trainers race 50k to the winning trainer here. Philip Rothwell leads Paul Flynn, Ross O'Sullivan, Pádraig Roach, and Peter Fahey. Very nice for those sort of guys. And then in the jockeys one, where there's 10k to the winner, we have Tiernan Power Roach leading marginally from Sam Ewing and Philip Enright. What do you make of that, Paddy? It's very good for those guys, the jockeys in particular, you'd know. But just for anyone at that level of the industry to be getting a 50 grand or 10 grand bonus at the end of a season is fantastic.
Oh, sure, Vin, that could be a year's salary for some of them trainers, 50k not to be sniffed at. And isn't it great that something has been put in place and it's actually working? The names you're listing off there, they mightn't be household names as such, and they're going to be rewarded for being part of this series and probably targeting it now. As I said, 50k is a lot of money, and for them jockeys, another 10k handout is a lot of rides. You'd have to ride a lot of horses to make 10k. So it's brilliant to see that it is working, and it's very positive.
Yeah, very true. All right, look, we've loads to get through besides that. So we'll start off Cheltenham Festival. A few little tweaks and changes, nothing major announced, but one of the ones is the Mayor's Hurdle moves to the Thursday from Tuesday. Don't know what difference that'll make to anyone really. The Coral Cup County Hurdle down to 24 max. The bumper will only have 22 runners max in that, and they've made a few changes to some of the starts for some of the 3 mile, 3.25 mile races. They've moved them around a little bit to make them fairer starts, I suppose. But the one thing that kind of interests me is that the organisers haven't ruled out moving the festival from a Wednesday to a Saturday in the future. Now, they say it'll take a bit of time. They've got to talk to all the stakeholders as usual around this, but I think that's probably a positive move at some point. What do you make of it, Johnny? Will it make much of a difference?
It should make a difference. Otherwise, they should basically know if they make this change with reasonable degree of certainty whether it'll work or not. Now, I've gone on the record a million times on this. Like, I'd prefer Cheltenham to go back to a 3-day festival, get rid of the rubbish mayor's races that should have no place in it in the first place, and get rid of a few other races. 3-day festival would be fine. That's not going to happen by the looks of it. Now, it also looks like the horrible prospect of a 5-day festival, which amazingly some people in the sport seem to be a fan of, including high-ranking people within the sport. That doesn't look like it's going to happen either, because the figures in terms of crowd demise, particularly on the Wednesday, are quite stark. Now, I remember Eddie O'Leary saying this to me last year, like that. And this year rather, with in relation to Cheltenham, that he feels that people are a bit too obsessed with the crowd issue. That it's kind of like Royal Ascot now, where you'll go for a day or a couple of days, and I kind of get that now, because I remember meeting David Jennings' mother, and herself and the dad, David's parents, were both going for the 3 days or for the 4 days, and I was like, Jesus, even if I were going, I think I'd struggle with 4 days at this stage. So there probably is a thing that the 4 days as a one package is tough going now. Even if you're not going to the bars, it's a lot. There's a lot happening. But if the 4 days is here to stay, I actually do feel that Wednesday to Saturday would have plenty going for it, because the Wednesday would then be a start. And you're developing Friday into Saturday. There'd be an amazing buzz Friday and Saturday, because like the weekend is coming, build into the Saturday. And maybe it's kind of anomalous now that you have these festivals that basically take place midweek, when people's sporting interest is kind of parked in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, more so than it is or compared to at the weekend. So I actually do feel, and I suppose the traditionalists may say you're moving further away from what it was, but Cheltenham isn't what it was, and a Wednesday to Saturday for me actually might work, because Saturday is such a showpiece day. The Wednesday where it is now is in big trouble, and obviously the Tuesday will be gone, but that wouldn't be a big issue, and I feel that it is worth looking at.
Is there a danger with this, that if they do go Wednesday to Saturday, you're ending up, it's Gold Cup Day is now the Saturday, that's got to compete with a lot of other big sporting events around that time of the year, isn't it? Like, you could be dealing with Six Nations, you could be dealing with, I don't know, FA Cup or whatever it is. There'll be some big games on in other sports, and you just wonder, will racing be able to hold its head up high, as you said, Paddy, there about ITV coverage or whatever may not be exactly enthralling at the moment. So, like, will it stand up there with the likes of those other sports, do you think, Paddy?
I don't think it will, Vin. I don't think it will. I think it's a problem. I think it's a big problem for Cheltenham. I don't like tinkering and trying this and thinking about that. And look, changing the mayor's race, it'll make a difference. It's on a different course, different round of jumping. That's a difference. Two different courses, big time. And then going from a Wednesday to a Saturday, you're going to compete with something on a Saturday, and the TV coverage is not good enough to compete with a Six Nations game or any football game. If there was a championship playoff or something, it would take over. I guarantee you, because it's more exciting to watch. As I said, ITV for me is a bore. So if it's boring me, it's going to bore the old fans as well. And I know we're going back to the realists or whatever, but realistically, there was nothing really wrong with Cheltenham. Why are we tinkering and tapping? I'm with Johnny. 3 days was super. The best 3 days of jump racing of the year. We're all out. It's an Olympics. We're not tinkering with the Olympics anymore either. We're not changing this date, that date. I know it might never happen. It might be down the pipeline. But for me, it's worrying that it's coming to this. And if they're not really, really careful, they could lose the allure of Cheltenham completely. Because at the minute, it's Irish dominance. There's people I know that are going for donkey's years that are not going this year. That just can't be arsed. And I know Eddie O'Leary says that's not a problem. Eddie O'Leary's not a spectator. Eddie O'Leary is a participant in the game. He's trying to make a few quid out of it. He's trying to win races. But your average 40-year-old plus person is not. They're going to go to the pub. And if there's a big game on in the pub, that'll be switched on, and Cheltenham will be on the other side screen, I think.
Just in fairness to Eddie, now Eddie wouldn't be necessarily saying that. I know what you're saying, Paddy, but like he would be thinking as well of the race score. But I'm with you. Like I asked Willie Mullins about this. I can't remember when it was. It this year? Was it this year or last year? But Willie's basic point is that Cheltenham is too expensive for the race score. And if you look at the cost of staying over there, that's absolutely true. But the problem for racing is that, and this isn't Willie Mullins' problem, but like I don't want to go to Cheltenham to see 4 odds-on favourites in 6-runner races. Like I don't want that. I don't want to see diluted fields, and like the magic at Cheltenham and. I'm slightly with this with sport in general. The older I get, the more I can contextualize sport in the overall scheme of things. And somebody has said it's the most important of the least important things, sport. And I get that. Sport isn't what it was to me when I was a kid. Like Man United and Liverpool yesterday. Jesus, I would have been looking forward to that for months when I was a kid. Yesterday, I wasn't even looking at it. That's fine. But Cheltenham, I don't know what you think, Vinny, but Cheltenham has gone way, way down in terms of the allure for me. Like the buzz I used to get going, whether I was going to the pub or Cheltenham itself, to see proper championship races like Brave Inca, Archibald, Hardy Eustace, these titans, like, and now you're going to see like 1 to 4 shots, like 3 odds-on shots in the day one. That's not Cheltenham to me, and I think it's massively lost because, as Paddy says, of the Irish domination. I think it's lost its allure big time, and 4 days is definitely not helping.
Yeah, well, the other thing with this is it's the constant tinkering with it. That's what's driving me mad at this stage. Every time you turn, they're changing some little thing. Some little baby thing has been changed, something else. It's like a fella gets a new car and he's there messing with it every Saturday and whatever. Like you get to the stage, like it's not the same car, is it? It's just they keep changing so much on it and putting different things on.
It's like buying the best Mercedes you can buy on the market, Vincent, and then putting tinted windows on it and bigger wheels and like
spoilers.
Cheltenham, don't forget now.
But it was money, lads. They wanted more money. They wanted to make more money. Like this is the point. They wanted to make more money. It was money.
Well, for the 4 day,
just think about this. It's very hard to get accommodation in Cheltenham. It's very hard to get a drink in Cheltenham for the right price. It's very hard to do everything in Cheltenham. So if you start diluting racing in Cheltenham, well, then it's not value for anyone. It's not fun. And I know Eddie O'Leary is thinking about sports people, but he doesn't wake up in the morning and think, right, next year, all my savings are going to Cheltenham. It's not. He can get on a flight in the morning and go and stay as long as he wants in the best hotel, and that doesn't bother him. But me and you, we'll have to work to get money to go to Cheltenham, and if it's not interesting us that much, what's the point?
Yeah, yeah, you will. You'll spend your few quid somewhere else, as we've seen in recent years. People going to the likes of Benidorm and whatever else to spend their money, or just staying at home, going to the pub, all that type of thing. That is the problem, isn't it? How do you? It needs to be value for money. That's the first thing, and it needs to be exciting, which is equally important, I suppose. But they're the two things that they've got to try and balance in all of this.
One other thing on it, Vinny. Sorry, I'm cutting across you again.
Yeah.
You think, when was your first Cheltenham that you went to?
Oh, I'd say it's probably 30 odd years ago. Yeah.
So what was the betting ring like then compared to now?
Oh, it was completely different. Everything was different. Every element of it was different. Anti-post was a huge thing back in those days as well. So you'd go to Cheltenham and you'd had a couple of anti-post bets guaranteed from months in advance. That's the way it worked then. And some of them might run, some of them wouldn't. But it was a very fluid market on those anti-post races, and the bookies were willing to stand horses, months in advance, which they're not anymore. That was a big part of it too. And of course, it was cash as well. Cash was king then, all cash betting. So you'd be fellas going over there with wads of money going, and they'd lose half of them on the boat going over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't even get the chance.
Yeah, this is not even a Tuesday yet, but this is the thing. Yeah. When I was getting into, like, I got into racing because I had 12 hours a week in college in first year, 12 hours a week, and that was if you went in. So I had nothing to be doing, and there was a bookie shop beside me. I went in and half got into this racing lark and got to know lads. I watched the first Cheltenham in 2003. And Alistair Down and Frankham and all these characters, Big Mac, presenting this thing that was new to me. But when you saw the money that was bet and the atmosphere and like the build up to these races and the fact that an Irish winner was a big thing because we didn't have that many winners, all of that's gone. Like all of those things are absolutely gone. And that's not me being nostalgic.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, going back to your college thing, I'm going right off track now, is that 12 hours a week is a joke, isn't it? Like, I've had two daughters. I've had to put through college up in Dublin, so they had accommodation, staying there, food and everything else for 4 bloody years. They could have done it in one. Anyway, there you go. We'll move on to something else, talking about Gordon Elliott, a 5-timer in Far Hills, including the American Grand National, which he won with Senna here in a thriller against Ballysax Hank last weekend. What about that, Johnny? That was some performance. 5 winners, all national hunt races. He won them all on the card, as far as I know.
Yeah, I didn't realise how I was talking to him at the race yesterday. I didn't realise how often he's been over there now, and it's probably almost like a bit of a routine trip for him now. I think he's been there at least half a dozen times to Far Hills, and my perspective, I was actually interviewing Gavin Cromwell for a feature in the Irish Racing Annual during the week, and he was just on the way over with Ballysax Hank. And I was just asking Paul Byrne about it. Like, it costs, say, about 15 to 20 grand per horse. So the prize money is good, but Gordon was saying this yesterday as well. You kind of do need to justify it. And I suppose it's kind of like, maybe like Gordon going to Perth with a few horses, except obviously you're spending far more money and there's a lot more effort involved. The horses have to go over earlier. They have to settle in. There's a fair bit to it, and it's obviously very costly. So you kind of have to have a fairly wealthy owner who's happy to take the risk, and then you have to do your sums and say, is this going to pay off? And I don't think it's quite like bringing a load of horses over to England, in the sense that kind of lessens the amount per horse. I think this is going to be expensive regardless of how many horses you send. And it was a really cool part of the Saturday narrative, because racing starts at 10:30 on Saturday. So it was kind of like a bags meeting. Was it at Catterick or wherever? And then I went all the way into this race at nearly 9 o'clock in the night. And I got the sense from talking to people in Limerick, like, there was a lot of interest in it, because it was Gavin Cromwell against Gordon Elliott as well. And they were sort of great friends back in the day, would have soldiered together, and Gavin shoed for him. And then Gavin took on his own career as a trainer and has become like topped the €2 million, was it last season, and he was only behind Gavin and only behind Gordon and Willie Mullen. So the quality of the races, you could say, well, they were good races, but it was just the fact that Jack Kennedy for me, given the injuries he's had, to have those 4 winners and the ride he gave Zana here, given the horse just didn't, I don't know, was it the horse's fault, but he wasn't able to help him for much of the race and getting up on the line. I did have sympathy for Keith Donoghue and Paul Byrne and Gavin, because it so nearly came off. The horse went off a heavily back favourite, even though on ratings he wasn't entitled at all. I actually asked Paul about this, when Paul buys a horse, I imagine he's a big plan in mind. And he's lying to me during the week for a piece I did was, when you're, as an owner, I want to lose as little money as possible with ownership. So with that in mind, he went over here to win a good pot. And I imagine, like he said, but this race wasn't in my mind when I actually bought Ballysax Hank. But he's a very interesting horse going forward, because this is a glorified hurdle race, but he's a very good chaser as well in the making. So it'll be interesting to follow his career. But I have to say now, talking to Gordon yesterday at Limerick, he wasn't like he wasn't in celebration mode. It was kind of like, that's Far Hills, I'm here now, and this is the Munster National, and this is kind of where it's really at. That was the impression I got. It was kind of like, that's done now, and it's kind of a fun day out, but this is the real stuff. And I do sense that Gordon won't really rest happily until he's champion trainer, if that makes sense.
It's going to be a while waiting to rest happily, so isn't he? Because it's not going to happen as long as Willie's sitting there with all the ammunition he has. But just on that, Paddy, I know you said to me going back years ago, you thought there was an opportunity for a lot of jump horses in Ireland to go to the likes of Australia, because it's far more lucrative out there. If you sent one out, a young horse out there, they'd have a cracking career out there, they're better class of horse than that. But you wonder with the American thing as well, I don't know how much more jump racing there is there. Could they go on a 5-week sabbatical over to the States and mop up a few races? I know Joseph was talking about that with a satellite yard in New York a few years ago. I don't think it really materialised in the end, but there must be opportunities abroad for a lot of these type of horses, Paddy.
Yeah, I think there would be, Vin. Definitely for the horses, Irish bred would be better staying types and better jumping types, but that'd be a very big operation. You'd need a lot of money to do that. You'd need, like Johnny said, I think it would be about 20 grand per horse just to get to Australia. That's without hiring staff, without 24/7 care, vets. So unless you were going to send out the right one that's going to win the Grand Nationals and the big ones, you'd make money then. But otherwise, you'd have to, send them out and get someone else to train them, or else sell them. Probably selling them is probably the easiest and best way, which I suppose a lot of our flat horses are there now. A lot of the cup horses in Australia are Irish, English, that sort of just below graded horses, listed sort of types, and they seem to be doing really well. But on guard, that's some achievement to go out there and win 5 out of 5, and I'd say the Americans were, going, what the hell are we doing here against these boys? And another one on Ballysax Hank, I think, is he named after one of our old friends, Vincent, around our area in Ballysax, and so we always would have been following him and watching him, and there's a lot of improvement in that horse. He's a smart horse. He ran in the Cheltenham bumper in the November meeting a couple of years ago, and he got loose before the start, and he was hard work, but he ran a hell of a race for Katie Brown, I think, trained him at the time. And she wouldn't be as big operation now as the lads. So once he got into a system and routine, he's a horse to keep an eye on. He could do well, this horse, and he's a bit of a dark horse, because it's hard to pinpoint him. He's running in good races, running okay, and then when they want him to win, they're backing him. He's doing it. He's doing it well,
He's definitely an interesting one forward, Vinny. I was in Downpatrick when he won. And we'll talk about the markets for Ascot later on, but the day he won in Downpatrick, he went from about 7 to 4 to 6s and more or less won on the bridle. And funnily enough, I remember the first time he ran after Paul bought him, he ran in some sort of a conditions hurdle race or sort of a rated hurdle, and he was backed into 8 to 13 and ran no sort of race at all. And as an owner, I think you really have to kind of accept the ups and downs of racing, but now he's clicking into gear. He won that big handicap in Britain, I forget the name of it now. It's a good handicap in market raising. And just to mention as well, Emily Love that won, like this kind of went under the radar a bit, but Emily Love, who was one of Gordon's winners, ran in like she's a decent horse, but like her last few runs, she was last to four her last one, but she went for a race with a 48 grand pot. So she was sent off odds on. So if you do the maths, it kind of probably did add up, 48,000 sterling pot. But her owner James Riley, I interviewed him in Killarney there not long ago. I think he's the guts of 90 years of age, and his daughter messaged me with photos of the family over in Far Hills and all the celebrations that they had. Now, not surprisingly, James wasn't able to make the trip or decided to watch it at home. But I couldn't get over talking to him at the races, the freshness of him and his memories of Arkle and his memories going back way back. But that would have been an amazing day for James Riley's family, and at that age to have a winner in Far Hills. And interesting, very interesting that Gordon targeted with that many horses, because it's fair enough going over with Coutach for Paul and going over for the big race, but he really went at it. He really went hard for it.
Yeah, very true. Just saying back to that Ballysax Hank last thing is, I saw the day he won his novice chase up the north. I thought he jumped exceptionally. There's definitely a big day in him over fences. Anyway, moving on. You talked about it there. British Champions Day was on last Saturday. Some of the biggest shocks I've ever seen. 200 to 1 winner, 100 to 1 winner. But there was also some good performances, including the Champion Stakes looked like a proper renewal. Calandigan, Ombudsman, and of course Delacroix only fourth. What did you make of that day, Johnny?
Yeah, just this is the difficulty of punting horses. When if you were to told you could back Delacroix each way at 11 to 2, in that race, as much as you can make the case, well, he has to. I don't feel on overall form he'll beat Ombudsman, but you come back, all the hype around Delacroix. And what's this is I have to say, this is, maybe it's a problem that's getting worse for me with age, but what do you do with horses who are drifting near the off when it looks too good to be true? And then this race looks an absolute 3-horse race. So I'm going to have a grand each way in Delacroix at 11 to 2. So at the very worst, I'm going to get £100 profit back, because at 11 to 10, he'd be placed in the first three. And somehow he's beaten the nose for third. And you're like, how did the market rate his chance that badly? And if you watch the race back, Sue Mignon spoke for it afterwards. I'm fascinated by this. Why was he so weak in the betting? Like, why did the market almost know that he'd very little chance of winning if the other two horses performed? And when they came into the straight, as much as he met traffic in running, he had no gear whatsoever to go after Calandigan and Ombudsman. Ombudsman couldn't really live with Calandigan, but I sort of thought on the day Calandigan listened to his very much in form and up and coming trainer speak afterwards. It sounded like he was just coming in here at the absolute peak of his powers. And if you run Group 1 races in the middle of October for horses who've been on the go for some time, to be fair, a lot of them will sort of plateau. They'll have basically slightly burnt off at this stage. Maybe that was the case with Ombudsman and Delacroix. But like, what did the market know to send him off 11 to 2? He was never going to be that price all week. He was 1-all in the match. He was supposedly scintillating in the Champion Stakes. I'm not sure he was really, but he likely retired to stud now with this kind of amazing pedigree to go to stud. But I thought this sort of showed limitations as well. And what did the market know that he was so rotten in the market? And if you backed him each way, you still weren't paid in the first three, you'd be absolutely gutted. And then you'll say to yourself, I shouldn't have backed him, so the market knew there was something.
Yeah, I know. Going by the line, I was sure he was third. There you go. Only a nose in it in the end. But yeah, look, I don't know the answer to this, but what I can tell you is I know that down in Ballydoyle, they'd be doing all their sectional timings, they'd be doing everything else. They'd know exactly what he was running to at home and where he stood compared to where he was earlier in the season. Now, whether someone took advantage of that or not, or tried to with the betting, I don't know. They would certainly.
When you say. Yeah, when you say you don't know, this has come into my head today. Isn't it quite sad that we just don't know anymore? Like, it's all complete cloak and dagger stuff. Like, it's just all betting that nobody knows. It's not happening in the betting ring. It's not happening really with the big firms. So we just don't know what's going on with the market anymore. It's complete guesswork unless you hear a slight rumor. But you then can even get a bet on all that. And it is very frustrating, because that was a part of the game. God, why is such a bookmaker taking that horse on? They're really, really laying that horse this morning. Now it's just like, I don't know, he's drifting. I've no idea why.
Yeah, and we're not even sure how much money it's taken anymore to move horses in whatever direction either, because there was a time when, as you say, there was huge liquidity on the exchanges. You could see someone trying to have hundreds of thousands on something, or vice versa, laying it for hundreds of thousands. Now you're dealing small money. It's very hard to tell what you're really dealing with. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, what about the Champion Stakes itself, Paddy? What did you make of that?
I thought the winner was very good, Vin. I underestimated myself, to be honest. I thought Ombudsman was a better horse than he is. Maybe he is. Maybe it's just late in the season for him. Overall, I just didn't think it lived up to what it should be. I know we had a 200 to 1 winner, 100 to 1 winner. Just felt a bit flat kind of the day. I don't know, is it ITV's coverage or what it is, but it doesn't, it feels very samey, whether it's, Royal Ascot or Champions Day. It's the same sort of, I can't put my finger on it, but it just doesn't, the build-up doesn't excite me. Then when the races disappoint, you kind of, I felt a little bit flat after watching it, and I'm hoping that that's not what's coming forward for jumps racing, because it's very exciting. It's easy sell jumps racing to people who like it, but I don't know, are we gone too far into trying to get people in that don't actually like it and will never like it? I don't know. I just, look, the day overall, the good horses there. Fields of Gold was very disappointing. Calangan was very
He was
good.
disappointing, Paddy, wasn't he? He was disappointing.
Yeah, really disappointing. Now, he probably got back further than he wanted to be back. But yeah, no, from the horse we saw at the Guineas in the Curragh, he's a shadow of himself, really. You couldn't trust him again either. So, look, Calangan will be around for a good while. He's gelding. The other two in behind him, Delacroix and Ombudsman, are colts. We probably won't see Delacroix again anyways. I don't know about Ombudsman, but I couldn't see a reason why we should be seeing him again. He's done enough to go to stud. But just, I don't know. ITV, I find it a bit boring.
There were some anomalous geldings winning on the day, Vinny, because Calangan, the son of Glen Eagles, he'd be maybe the first Glen Eagles to go to stud, but obviously he's gelded. But a fella came up to me at the races yesterday, Mick, he's a fan of this show actually, and he was telling me about he said, did you see he won with Mission Central? He's he was a 2-year-old, and he's gelded. Very unusual for Aidan O'Brien. I was watching it at home with the missus, and Aidan O'Brien says it made a man out of him, and the missus turns around to me and said it could have made a man out of you as well, more or less. Gelding could make a man out of all of us anyway.
You have it, yeah. That's gas stuff. Just back to one thing there, Paddy, just around that Melbourne Cup we were talking about earlier. I see that the favourite in it has been ruled out by the vets. Sir Delius doesn't run in the Melbourne Cup now, announced during the week. What do you make of that, Paddy? Is it, you were out in Australia for a long time as well. Obviously, they're trying to make sure that the anti-racing people have nothing to shout about, which is the reason behind it, I suppose. But it's very hard stuff on connections, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's surprising because it's one of Gay Waterhouse's. Gay is massive trainer out there, and she's a legend. I wrote a couple of winners for her. Now she is a character, let me tell you. So, I wouldn't have been like to be the vet to say to Gay, you're not running in the Melbourne Cup with a favourite. So, look, the horse must have had an issue, as I said. If they're definitely taking it away from her. It's funny that he's after winning 2 Group 1s on the way to it and never had to do a trot up or a test like the Melbourne Cup. And do you know what? There's a story breaking there this morning in Australia. One of the head vets, I can't remember her name, but I can remember the girl when I was out there, that she used to come and trot up the horses for the Cups. And she's taken a case against Racing Victoria about bullying and being bullied into letting horses run. So that's kind of surprising to me that she had felt pressure to actually let them run. And she's no longer, so as much as we think they're targeting them, when this case is coming out and she's saying that she was forced to, let horses run and, has come out and said that she was bullied into it and she had to stop her work, that it might not be all that it seems either, So, listen, if one of Gays isn't running, there's something wrong.
Anyway, there you go. We'll move on to something else, talking about money. The Irish government, their budget, they've left the horse racing allowance, or their subsidiary they're putting into horse racing, the same again for next year. I don't know whether you look at that as being a positive or a negative. Is it half glass full or half glass empty? What do you make of that, Paddy? Same money, so it means they've got to cut the cloth exactly the same horse racing. Not a lot going to change, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think it's a positive thing, Vincent. I think it's kind of probably a little bit of a slap on the wrist maybe to the regulatory board and HRI saying, listen, you've got what you've got, and what are you doing, and what's there to show us that you need more money? And I don't know, did they come up with that for a plan? I know they plan to increase races. You said before we came on air, more racing. Do we need more racing? I mean, do we really need more racing? Do we need to turn into England and force racing down our neck every day of the week? More all-weather tracks. I presume there'll be some of them coming down the line. But have we done anything to warrant more money, Vincent? What's the big plan going forward? Or basically the government has said, sure, look, that's what you're spending it on, and why do you need more? And what's the answer?
Well, the bottom line for me on this, I wrote about it in the blog today as well. Back to kids in college, similar idea that you go and you've a kid goes and they leave home and they get their first job and they're having to stay away. You might give them a few quid towards rent for the first couple of months, like their feet under the table, get a few months' wages in and everything else. But you don't keep giving it to them. You keep giving it to them, they're going to turn soft, aren't they? They're never going to stand on their own 2 feet. If you keep paying their rent, they'll just go out drinking it at the weekend or whatever they'll do with it, and they'll never get a saving scheme together themselves to get a mortgage or whatever. It's my way of viewing it. And horse racing is something similar, isn't it, with the government funding? This is going on now for a quarter of a century. They're funding this game, and it's most of it going into prize money, or about a third of the money they get from Horse Racing Ireland, or Horse Racing Ireland get from the government, goes directly into prize money. And that's the problem. Our prize money is very low now because it's been dealing with the same level of money that hasn't kept pace with inflation and everything else. So all the other side costs for having a horse in training are going up, and the prize money is staying static. Most of the races are static for about 10 years now, the prize money, and obviously they're not going to change for the next year either with the latest budget. What do you make of it, Johnny?
Yeah, I'd have suppose I'd like to look at this argument, but from both perspectives. Like, you talk to trainers, and trainers university are worried about prize money. Our prize money is, I'd go as far as say it's rubbish. Like, it's really, really bad. When you see what the bird catcher is running for now, when you see good races, and as much as HRI is very happy to say that it has kept the minimum level at whatever 10 grand races, but like, I'm involved in a horse at the moment. If you're involved in a horse at the low level, like it's so unattractive to be involved for the prize money aspect of it, because everything has gone up. Everything has gone up. Like, I was talking to a fellow the other day, and we use this. I love a croissant, right? So in a croissant and coffee parlance, right? Apparently, a croissant and a coffee has gone from $3.50 to $6.50 in Dublin in the space of no time. What about milk? What about meat? What about eggs? What about fuel? What about the price of a house? All of these things have gone like way up. Coffee, everything's gone way up. Inflation based on the war in Ukraine, climate change, all of these things have gone way up. And prize money is basically static or going backwards, right? So we're in a big problem in Ireland when I can't see how trainers are going to keep encouraging people into the game, because there's way too much racing as well. And even if you do win a race, and there's so many industry meets now, and the trainer mightn't be there mightn't be any atmosphere there. Like, the whole attraction of being an owner for me is kind of gone. But I just don't know what the solution is in terms of prize money, because, as you say, Vinny, the government is already paying nearly half it. Like, so what's the solution here? Like, maybe prize money shouldn't be that great. Like, maybe horses running around the field shouldn't be running for like hundreds of thousands, unless you're in, Dubai and Saudi Arabia, where it's oil money that's paying for them, or in Hong Kong, where there's actually bet money towards it. Maybe the prize money shouldn't be that big, but I don't see how in Ireland, I don't see any solution to this whatsoever, because bookmakers are losing interest in racing. Like, they're literally losing interest in racing. That's why William Hill doing this is actually anomalous. You see the Paddy Power Shop closures thing. Like, the bookmakers are really losing interest in racing. So I don't see how prize money is going to improve in the short term, and how there's a plan to have more racing in Ireland. There's way too much racing in Ireland. Ask anyone who goes racing. There's way too much racing, and surely the solution isn't more races.
Yeah. I don't think so either. There you go. But Horse Racing Ireland's latest 5-year plan was looking to increase it by 10% over the 5 years. We're now heading into year 3, and they haven't increased it by a single race yet, because they can't, because there is no money to increase it is the problem, and the horse population is not there. The number of horses in training either has been static for a few years as well. Anyway, we'll move on. A bit of good news, I think, is Leopardstown announced a new CEO, a guy called Mark Clayton. English guy is coming in to take over Leopardstown. And he's got lots of experience in the industry, which I think is a positive. He's worked 12 years at Suddle. He's also worked in Doncaster and Haydock, so he knows the time of day when it comes to horse racing. What do you make of that, Johnny? in general terms, without the individual as such, but just someone coming into the industry with a lot of experience into a role like that.
Yeah, Paddy's actually playing soccer and is a soccer fan. So another kind of soccer analogy, I suppose. You don't want to take over from a manager who was unbelievably successful. So like David Moyes was probably written off because he took over from Alex Ferguson, and you don't want to take over from a manager who is very hard to improve on. But Leopardstown is probably definitely the example of this on the flat, and then it's not a knock on the people that have been there, but the position Leopardstown is in at the moment, in terms of its massive fall from grace in terms of flat meetings, it means this job for for Mr. Clayton is attractive, because I think there's plenty of upside. The attraction of the Christmas has endured. The attraction of the Dublin Racing Festival is a success story, particularly with British visitors. The flat has absolutely fallen apart at Leopardstown. Like I used to love going out there in a summer's evening, and maybe I don't go racing as much anymore. But like, there's no incentive to go anymore. The betting ring is dead. It's one meeting in one racetrack. Baldoyle is gone. The Phoenix Park's gone. One racetrack in a city of the guts of 1.5 million people, and they can't get anyone to go to a flat meeting. So I think Leopardstown have totally lost interest in attracting people to go to particularly flat meetings and some other meetings. There's an element of, you have one job here, and that is to actually get people to go to the races, because it's basically, if you go racing and there's no one there, you're less likely to go again. And that's the problem with Leopardstown. It's gotten to that stage on the flat. So he comes in. I did a bit of digging in racing TV about him. People seem to like him, but because he was with the ARC tracks, they didn't know much about him. But as you say, Vinny, he has good experience. This is a great job for somebody to get, because there's a lot of upside here. Leopardstown has become a joke with its flat meetings. It should not be like that. It needs to get that back.
Yeah, I think it's very positive seeing someone coming in who has an understanding of the industry, because we've had plenty of people in different positions within the industry over the last number of years have come in. They've loads of experience in business in different areas, but not necessarily horse racing. And I really think you need that. That's a core element of what you need to know coming in. Anyway, moving on to another thing is Jack Cleary, who's Leopardstown again, rode 4 winners the Apprentice on his 22nd birthday last week, and it puts him right in contention for this Apprentice Championship. What do you make of that, Paddy? He could win this with the backing of Aidan O'Brien, couldn't he?
He could. Myself and Johnny were just talking about Wesley last week on the show. But Jack is flying. And I did watch yesterday, and I was watching him closely. I think he was second in the last race too, so he wasn't far off a 5-timer. Only Dylan Brown McMonigal beat him on the line. He's definitely in with a shout, and he's definitely a chap that's going forward. He's going to improve a hell of a lot, and he's got a good man in Aidan looking after him. But his dad wasn't too bad at the whole horses either, you know. Mickey was a good old character. It's good. It's a good Apprentice title this year. Some really, really good young lads coming strong. And look, Jack, I suppose, was Joseph champion apprentice for Aidan?
He was, yeah. Without knowing, I'd say he had
I wonder, had he had any other one? Was Sean Levy a champion? I know he was apprentice there, but I don't know if he was a champion apprentice.
Yeah. Don't know.
So it's rare. It's rare for Aidan to be using them, and Ryan's injury has just fallen perfect. Yeah, he's lovely style, Johnny. He's not that small of a chap, so I say he has to do a little bit of work to keep himself nice and neat. But he's strong. He's good and strong in a drive, and that'll stand to him. You know, he as he gets stronger and develops, it's hard to teach someone to really get down and gritty with a horse, and he's doing that already. So he'll only get better, you know. And fair play to him, he's fine.
And just on that, Paddy, just around the fact that he's riding some very well bred horses in Ballydoyle. They're extremely well trained horses and fed horses and every other element of it. Is that an advantage to a young kid coming through, or are you better riding in pony racing or whatever to get to that level, is the question?
No, geez, if you give me my time back and you said you can go into William Owens's and ride them, yeah, you take them, because he's riding out with probably, who knows, there could be 50 ex-jockeys down there who are superstars in their own right. So every morning he goes to work, he's learning from the very best, and then sure, Aidan's touches on top. He's learning how to ride horses properly, Vincent. You can get bad habits riding bad horses. You know, if you're kicking around in a jumps race around Kilbeggan, and the horse doesn't jump well, and he's not fit, and he doesn't like hard ground, but if they run him on you because he's no good, you'll soon learn how to pull back and start getting weary. Whereas Jack's, he's getting up on proper nice horses every morning and doing things right, and that stands to him. That it'll get your confidence a lot higher, a lot quicker doing it on good horses and doing it the right way.
It's
Yeah,
an
I can
amazing
imagine.
race, Vinny, because just looking at the stats, Robert Weirty as of now and Wayne Hassett are level on 23 each, but Robert Weirty's had 21 winners. Robert Weirty's had 23 winners, 23 seconds, 21 thirds, and 23 fourths. Wayne Hassett has had 23 first, 22 second, 21 third. Really, really tight. And I was looking at this because I'm kind of willing Wesley Joyce to win it, as much as they're all great lads. I'd kind of love Wesley to win it with the near death experience I think you could say he had in Galway. And Wesley's two off, but I sort of had it down as a 3-horse race with Sam Cohn and Nicola Burns, good stories, but maybe going to fall short this year. And James Ryan, the champion, is back, I think, in 7th, which is an example of how tough it has been this season. And all of a sudden, Jack has won off. So now you wonder, does Aidan sort of think, well, yeah, we can give this lad a good go. As Paddy says, he's quite tall. He speaks very well as well. He has his head screwed on, and this is a job where it's fairly intense working for Ballydoyle. He doesn't seem to have gotten kind of to his head, but this is an amazing race. 23, 23, 22, 21 at the moment. Wesley back and forth, and it's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be fascinating, but I can't get over the numbers, how tight it is at the top.
Yeah, very true. One other thing I wanted to just mention was I see Hewick is back with a win last week, and Grand National will be the long-term target again. But I thought it was interesting, Shark saying he thinks the son might stick with the ride. He's to talk to the owner about it, but his idea is that they've built up a great partnership now. So he said that about a few other jockeys before with the same horse, I suppose. What do you make of that, Paddy? Not so much about Shark's son, but about Hewick. Do you think the horse will reach big heights again, win out like a King George again?
Sure, Vin, I've wrote him off so many times. I'm not going to write him off again, to be honest. If you've seen him in the flesh, you wouldn't think it's Hewick if you're looking around him, looking for Hewick. A fair play to him. No, I would touch on the thing with young Paddy, because as much as the horse is a great story, I think all the coverage Paddy got leading him up in the King George before he was a jockey, we've kind of come to grow with Paddy Hanlon as well, so it's a nice story that he's now on him, and it kind of reminds me of myself getting on Hardy Eustace, because I was there when he was broke, and I watched everyone else have a good go on him, and Connor and Kieran Kelly, and then I got me shot in him, and I won a grade 1 in him in Punchestown at 13, so it's giving me that sort of vibe. So it's lovely for young Paddy. He's going to be Henderson's claimer going forward. So, he's got a great future ahead of him, and he seems a really nice kid. He was a little bit reckless when he started with stick and stuff like that, but this season seems to have, he's really polished himself up, and he's going places. And look, I'd love to see Hewick go and win a big one, because we need characters. We need the Sharks in the game. We need good stories. Like we've been sitting here for the last half an hour giving out about odds-on favourites and things that are certainties. But Hewick is never going to be a certainty, but he could rock up and win a Grand National. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, true. All right, we'll finish off with a horse to follow from the last week. I'll start off with an odd one, I suppose, to some extent, because the jumping racing hasn't been great in Ireland the last week. But I'm going to go with Samba Train, a 4-year-old filly of Enda Bulgers. After winning 2 bumpers, she is. And she won her second bumper at Limerick on Saturday. What I thought was interesting here was she was given £6 to the runner-up, and the pair of them pulled 19 lengths clear of everything else. Enda said he's very excited about seeing her go over hurdles. So obviously she's jumping well for Enda. No better place to learn how to jump, I suppose, than Enda Bulgers.
As well. It was interesting to see Anya hug the rail. I was talking to Enda Bulger before the race, and he said, I leave it up to Anya, and she hugged the rail, and some of the other riders, John Gleeson went wide, and we don't know whether it mattered or whatever, but Anya was happy to hug the rail and won, obviously.
Yeah. So what about you, Johnny, yourself? What did you spot from last week?
Can I just, before I'm gonna give a horse from Limerick as well, can I just ask you on that, Paddy, actually, before we go, what's that like? were you ever brave enough to say, right, I'm going to basically do exactly what the other jockeys aren't doing here and go an outer track like we've seen Frankie do it many times? Do you have to keep this within your, a secret? Nobody knows what you're going to do. Did you ever do that? And obviously, you're just going to be mocked if it backfires, I suppose.
Yeah, I have done it, Johnny, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It all really depends on the horse. You need to know the horse. I wouldn't just be jumping up on one having that plan if I'd never sat in the horse before, because they are a herd animal, and sometimes if you take them away from the herd, they spend their whole race worrying about getting back to the herd. You'll see it in some races, even on the flat. Horses tend to drift to each other. So if you're there fighting with him and you're saying, no, the better ground is out there, well, you've lost the race anyway because he's stressing about getting back to the rest of them and he's not breathing, he's not moving properly. So there's a lot to it. It's more than just jumping out over there and jumping over there. Willies are very good at it because they're very hard-going horses in bumpers. They'll grab the bit and they're tough and they're strong. So Patrick can most of the time get away with it, and they're probably a lot better than the other horses. But it's not something you're planning to do unless it's a messy sort of ground. But you have to take a few things into consideration before you chance it, because, as I said, if you spend the whole time with your left hand and the horse is hanging, well, then you're a clown,
Yeah,
all right, Johnny.
That is interesting. The herd stuff is interesting because you do see the horses kind of coming towards, I suppose, their peers in a race. But that's definitely interesting. I'm always keen to hear your jockey's appraisal. I'm going to give one from. There are a few choices now from Limerick yesterday. Some smart performances. Walks in June was going to get the nod, but I'm going to give it to Chosen Comrade, partly because owner Paul Leach is a fan of the show. Vinny, we get this a lot at the races. I love listening to the podcast on a Monday. I think he described something about our stream of consciousness type thing yesterday when I was talking to him. He's like invoking some sort of spirit of James Joyce or whatever. But anyway, Chosen Comrade beat a Run to the Queen very, very easily for her first run over hurdles. And Run to the Queen has pretty smart bumper form. Seems to be very bit of market confidence behind her. Not a massive horse, but she has won a point to point and has proper toe. And maybe that's much maligned Mares Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham I was talking about might be on the agenda for her. But going to be a big season for Sam Ewing as well. I liked her performance considering her inexperience. She bolted up.
Great stuff. And what about you, Paddy? What caught your eye?
Oh, look, I'm after giving 2 jumpers in the last 2 shows, so I'm going to stick to it with the flat horse Calland again going forward. I think he showed us he's very, very good. He's gelding, so he's staying in training, so he's one for the future.
Great stuff. Excellent. Well, look, thanks, guys, for all the contributions, and hope you have a lovely week. And I hope everyone watching has too. We'll be back again next week for something similar. Do gamble responsibly, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.